I think the important thing that you need to look at is that what will India's way forward be in AI compared to the way that either China or the US is looking at it. The big money initially went into AI compute in terms of the large data centers and the infrastructure which needed to be built out. It also went into building these trillion token models and trillion parameter models which were being built out. I think India's approach has been a little different and more studied. We believe our real opportunity lies more in actually developing applications which can then be used, because that's where the revenue ultimately will be. So I think India's ITES companies and STEM human resources would be geared towards building out these applications based on AI and then making sure that they are deployed. Because just having the model or compute is not enough. For any enterprise or anybody else to use AI effectively, they need these applications. The second part of it is that India's emphasis has been much more on how AI can be actually used and in which segments, the use cases, and in which segments of the economy or which segments of which sectors can it have the best impact. So whether it is manufacturing, whether it is agriculture, whether it is healthcare.
Answer the question then for us. You're asking the question. What is the answer to that?
No, the answer to that is that's our focus.
No, so, which sectors? Where will it go?
No, so these are the productive sectors of the economy. So these productive sectors of the economy, whether it is manufacturing, agriculture, healthcare, education, those are the focus areas where AI investments are going in for developing applications which can then enhance productivity.
Okay, talk to us a little bit about data centers. You know, GCCs has been the buzzword effectively in India. Will the government go ahead and give those assurances to the companies aiming to build those data centers? The question has been around guaranteeing land, electricity, water, and regulatory clearances, the single window clearances. What's your take on that?
You see, I think data centers would be treated as investments, and therefore we have a mechanism of the national single window and also state single windows which give most of the clearances. Many states have already started doing it, and we'll support it at the national level as well, because most of the clearances are actually at the state level.
Whether it is for
which is whether it is the land, whether it is a power supply, whether it is a building permission, all of those. So most of those fall within the realm of what the state governments need to do. The central government has some rules. I mean, there would be some telecommunication authorizations which would be needed to communicate between two of the data centers. If you're putting in a fresh cable landing station, then some clearances would be required as to where you land.
Intel CEO, Microsoft CEO, Amazon News, Google happened a couple of days ago. This just doesn't happen because the world has suddenly realized we've got to invest in India and they want to catch up to their investments in China or the US or anything like that, these big tech companies. This happens because there's a mobility push, there's a political movement, there is an industry-led movement. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I think the important thing is that there are two or three factors which are important. I think one which we have been told by all of these companies is that these data centers are not meant just for India, but they're meant to be used across the world. So to some extent, the availability of renewable power in India and the size of the grid enables this to happen. Because ultimately with AI and data centers, what you are aiming for and what you're chasing after is where is adequate power available. The land is a secondary requirement they'll figure out, you know, and India is a large country, there will be land. Initial clustering took place where the cable landing stations were. Mumbai and Chennai were the two places where there was a lot of clustering. Now it is spreading out more to where the demand for services are. Bangalore, Hyderabad, Noida, those are around Delhi. So those are the places where it's spreading to. Eventually, I believe it'll go closer to where the power itself is. So I think that's the direction in which it's moving.
Okay. It's all about electrification, we understand. You're also seeing these developments, these investments, 35 billion, 15 billion, 17 billion, coming in 2 months before India is hosting the AI summit, which has been hosted by France, by UK, South Korea, and even in Africa. What should we be looking ahead to in Feb?
I think the main theme and what we are looking at is in the in the sort of catchphrase. We're calling it the AI Impact Summit.
Yeah.
We started in UK in Bletchley Park in November 23. It was called the Safety Summit. So there was always this fear as to what AI will do. We moved to an innovation summit in Seoul, and we moved to an action summit in France. So now we finally come to look at impact, saying, you know, what is it that, what difference will it make to people's lives? Yeah. And I think, as I was saying, what would India's advantage be? Would be the use cases, how you deploy it, what difference it will make to people's lives, and that's what we would be looking at in our summit.
I'm going to talk to you about jobs, because Amazon is saying that they're going to create many jobs with this 35 billion investment. That's a huge challenge. That doesn't, to the normal person who has been hearing the headlines around how many jobs AI will take, this investment creating jobs is a bit of a confusing factor.
When I read the story, fundamentally what they're looking at is, because Amazon is a big platform which helps micro and small and medium enterprises across the country, and they sell products on it and so on. They are counting in the knock-on effects of making that kind of trade seamless, and therefore jobs which will get created in all their organizations which the platform helps. Okay. So yes, of course, that's broader economic activity, but from our perspective, we normally divide it into direct jobs and indirect jobs. Most of these would be indirect jobs, some would be construction jobs, some would be the other activity which grows around it.
Yeah, but we've seen that the major companies, the IT companies, have had layoffs. How is that a concern for the ministry?
I think we are, let's be honest. I think the way we look at AI and the way our conversations with many of the IT companies is that, you know, they tell us that, look, every year we do send home some people. I mean, that's part of our normal churn. And we are also recruiting. Maybe the recruitment has slowed down a bit, but that is because we are finding the right talent for the newer kinds of jobs which are getting created.
And is that a challenge?
Well, I think they are trying to pivot to a place where they actually create AI applications and deploy them. So there would be different kinds of jobs from the kind of jobs that they had earlier. So there is a challenge in terms of reskilling and upskilling people, and they're working on that.
Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw, your minister, he had an interview recently where he said that by 2031, 32, we will be equivalent to some of the major countries when it comes to India's semiconductor mission. And that's to build the industry to about, correct me if I'm wrong, 100 billion, 110 billion by 2030. And I also understand that's an intent, that's not necessarily a target. One of the primary challenges to do that is that we're not doing enough core chip design work, but mostly design validation work. And that such kind of rapid growth in the next 3-4 years, it really does depend on the supply chains that are unfortunately controlled by China. What's your take on that?
See, I think, look, no industry is without challenge. So I don't think that we should underplay the challenges. But at the same time, I think it's important to recognize that we were not a player in the semiconductor space at all till very recently. Now we are being taken seriously as a player in the semiconductor space. There are 10 units which are coming up, and 2 or 3 more which maybe get cleared shortly. Then the Prime Minister has announced the next phase of the India Semiconductor Mission, which will focus a lot more on bringing in the ecosystem and everything else along with it. We are very deliberate in the strategy. We haven't, in the first instance, focused on, you know, making cutting-edge chips in India. We're not saying we'll make 2 nanometer chips or 1 nanometer chips. We know that we have some way to get there. So we are focusing on legacy nodes where there's a sizable market already and where there's a requirement, and where I think we can learn the technology and start there, and then organically grow into more leading-edge nodes as we go along.
But do we have the time, sir? Because the question has been, momentum is the moat. The key is that at the end of the day, the US and the China and the others, they're just going so fast that to claim that we'll catch up in 5 years on semiconductors or we'll be a big player, it just seems unrealistic, or is it possible?
I honestly believe it's possible, simply because it is not unrealistic. I mean, we will be a significant player in the semiconductor space in about 5 to 10 years, but that's not the end of the race. I mean, most countries which are there got there over 30 or 40 years. And so it will take us a little longer to sort of get a leading space. But I think the globe has also changed. Geopolitics today has changed in such a way that you need alternate supply chains. You need the diversification of supply chains to actually take place, because that's what adds to resilience. So the space is getting created there.
Is India the hedge to AI, or is it where there's going to be money coming in?
I think India is not necessarily the hedge. India has a different approach and is situated in a different part of that market. We are where the applications will get developed. We are where the applications will start getting deployed from.
Sure.
And so that is another aspect of it altogether.
I want to ask one final question on regulations. It's a tough task to come up with AI regulations, that is acknowledged. But the likes of the EU have demonstrated it's possible. India's position has effectively been, paraphrasing, that it's such a fast developing technology that we can't do it just yet. We have guidelines, which we have put out. And to some critics, to some analysts, that's not enough. There are concerns around AI. There are political ramifications through AI that we have seen play out in elections. So AI and its regulation is important. It's just that how do we do it, and is India going to find a way to do it when the likes of EU has said and shown that it can be done?
I think the important thing, there are many aspects to AI regulations. I think India's present position on AI regulation is there are at least 2 or 3 parts which can be handled under existing law. You talked about political issues, deep fakes, misrepresentation.
Yes.
Our existing IT Act has provisions to deal with it. We have sort of clarified some of those positions a little more effectively recently in order to enable us to deal with that better. So we believe that, and those are provisions of law which are not available in some other countries. We've had them from before. So to that extent, the existing law helps us to do that. Likewise, if you look at data privacy, our DPDP Act has now been notified and will come into force. That to some extent protects the way that data privacy issues will be addressed. Recently, yesterday in fact, or day before, on the copyright issue, a committee of the Ministry of Commerce and Industry has put out their report on what an approach could be, and they put out a working paper which we are discussing. So that all of these aspects are being looked at, and they're being dealt with under existing law. So our AI governance report, which was chaired by our principal scientific advisor, what it basically said is that you have existing laws under which you can deal with some aspects of this, and where needed, you can legislate if there's an urgency.
Isn't there an urgency?
We believe that we should not stifle innovation at this stage. We believe that this is not yet the time for regulation, and if there is a need to regulate, we will. And right now, I think it's still the time for innovation to actually take place.
The US has the Mag 7, not to mention OpenAI and Anthropic. China has the 6 little dragons. All of this got to do with AI. When does India get its AI-related big names?
I think you don't have to wait very long. Hopefully before the AI summit in February, we should have at least 1 or 2 big names coming out of India in terms of foundational models.